Hey guys, welcome back yet again to the WT Farm Girls channel. We are going to do more hay today, but instead of breaking it up into 3 separate videos, it's been a crazy summer / fall, so I just kind of hit the ground rolling and just shot as much footage as I could. So we're going to do an all-inclusive cutting, raking, tedding, and baling. We have 3 different fields that we're going to be working on. And it's just a matter of trying to get the hay to dry this late in the year. Normally, we try to cut towards the end of August, and that's our cutoff point for cutting. But this year, we decided to push it back a little bit later because otherwise the grass would keep growing. We'd have to cut it later anyway. So the big question is, can we get the hay to dry well enough to be able to bale it, or will the entire thing be a fail? Let's go check.
All right, so we're gonna put the Quick Connect PTO link system back on the tractor because it prevents me from having to telescope out the hitch. And it's just one of those things that's easy enough to put on. So it's combined of 2 pieces, and we're gonna take our special locking clip out. There's a little button in the back that we're gonna push. And honestly, pushing the button is probably the hardest thing on this thing. So it's just one of these. That's the locking clip. So you take that off, and then you have your 2 sides, and then we're going to pull the other lock, and then we're just going to twist like that. There you go, all taken apart. And if you're wondering what all the biffs and scratches are on this, that's from my lawnmower attacked it and the PTO Link 1. The lawnmower did not fare so good. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put this end on the tractor, and then this end goes on our implement. So we have a locking clip on it, just like you would your implements. So you're just gonna pull that back. It's a little bit easier to line up because you don't have a whole huge shaft down there. All right, so I got that on with 2 hands. All right, next is we're gonna put this on, and we're gonna use this. So there's 2 different ways you can do it. You can either put this directly onto the one on the tractor and then connect this to this end, or you can connect this whole thing onto this and then connect the entire system onto there. Depends on which is easier for you. On a lot of my implements, the locking cuff is stuck, and so it's very difficult to try to get on and off. So by putting this on, it makes it a lot easier. Alright, so we have it on here. That connected on easy enough because, like I said, this new cuff doesn't take too much effort to connect on. And then you're just going to slide that one into there. We're going to try to show you upside down how this looks. Maybe we can... Alright, so here is the one on the tractor. And right there. Alright, see how we have that connected in? So now we have to turn one and not the other, and that's a little bit of a trick too sometimes. There it is. All right, that pin just popped right in there, and then after the first pin pops in, you want to put the second pin in across the other side. And sometimes you might have to turn it just a little bit more if it doesn't quite line up, and usually it does, but like I said, I ran this one over with the lawnmower, so there it is. And this is also the prototype that we have here. So there you go. So this is the one that comes with it, and then this is the extra locking clip that you have. So you have your whole thing set up and ready to go. And because of that, I don't have to telescope this stupid thing in and out, because previously I would have had to have this all the way in there, which means I would have had a telescope in my hitch too. And that's a pain in the butt, because then you have to move it back out for everything else. So being able to put that on makes a world of difference. Then all we have to do is connect our hydraulic line. And now we're ready for third cutting hay. Alright, so we're just going to do the larger 8 to 10 acre field today, and that's going to be it. We're not going to do the other fields. But it's to the point where I either have to cut it as hay or just cut it and leave it. Because we would like to overseed, and this is just going to be way too long. You know, I could let it grow another month and cut it, but honestly, I have other stuff I need to get done, so this is going to be it. I'm not expecting a lot of payoff from this, but you know, some areas it's probably a good 15 inches tall. I mean, you can see it waving out there. But it's decently tall. It's not as tall as second cutting, but it'll do. Alright, let's see what we can do here. Alright, so we've got a good chunk of the field already done. We gotta come over here and get this last bit. So, I mean, honestly, it looks pretty good. It's definitely really thin in some areas, which is expected. I mean, this is third cutting, and honestly, I think it was only like maybe 30 days after second cutting. It hasn't been that long, really. And you can see how patchy it is in certain areas. But, you know, we might get, I don't know, another 150 bales off of it if we're lucky. Maybe a little bit more, but I'm guessing 150, which isn't a huge amount, but we've got so many customers that keep asking for it that it'll be pretty easy to sell. And like I said, it needs to get cut anyway because it's too long to be able to seed into. So might as well just make a little extra cash instead of just mulching it right down into the ground. But we've got a nice breeze blowing, the sun's coming out, so hopefully this will dry it down decently well yet tonight and get a good start for the weekends. So here's the update for today, Saturday. Thankfully, God pushed the rain all the way back into Sunday night, so we are not battling rain tonight. However, we are battling extreme humidity. Like, it's not hot, it's actually cool outside, but I am sweating great guns. Like, it's just weird, thick, soupy weather. And hay does not like thick, soupy weather, it likes dry weather. And balers do not like soupy hay. And unfortunately, our hay has absorbed a lot of moisture out of the air. Now, we didn't get a lot of dew this morning, which was great. But the tiny bit that we did get, the hay is really holding on to. Especially in bales that were in chunks. So anytime, like right there, you can see like a chunky line. Well, I mean, you can kind of see a line right back there. See that chunk, 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 chunk? That's hay that's already been to the baler, and it's not laid out flat and smooth. All of that stuff is extra damp. The stuff that's in the windrows that haven't been baled yet, that stuff's still not too bad. In all fairness, I have not tried a non-baled windrow. I really should do that next. So what's happening is that when the hay is extra damp, it bales extra heavy. So these are 80-pound bales. Now I know some of you guys do 80-pound bales, but here in Michigan, if I let that go, that hay is gonna catch on fire or it's gonna mold. Either way, it's not gonna be good. So we have to keep the bales to 50 pounds because this is orchard grass, because it is very fine leaf. It just really likes to sponge up that moisture. So we have to keep them at 50 and keep them as low in moisture as possible. Like I said, it's hard to do with the orchard grass, especially second cutting. So I dialed off some of the pressure on the side shoots of the baler. What I was noticing was that it was tying knots, but it was still holding up on the right side. So I've been dialing back pressure on the bill hook to make sure that it can, you know, release as needed. But in areas where I push too much hay through, it's still catching and tearing. And if I have thick, heavy hay, it's putting too much pressure on it and it's still just popping it out. So I really don't want to have to rake the hay yet again. Plus I've already raked it like 3 times already. So it adds extra fuel. So many highs and lows. Like, I was glad to see that the rain got pushed back, but humidity doesn't do us any favors. So, and I don't know if the baler's actually fixed. I can't really tell because it's not a fair test. The crop is wet and heavy. All right, I guess I'm just gonna suck it up and go get the rake again. Hopefully it's working because I don't want to rake again tomorrow. All right, got everything re-raked. It definitely broke up the clumps a lot. So we're gonna go ahead and turn on the PTO. Actually a little bit high. I'm wondering if we're a little bit high. Make sure we get our 540 up. All right. So we're gonna shoot for that row over there, so I have to bring it this way. I really don't like whomping hay through it on a turn, but kind of don't have a choice at the moment because I got to get this row up here. Right there. And ideally aim for the far right side because that'll give it a chance to kind of get sorted out, I think. Be spitting out little chunks for a little bit, just because it did have to have the twines cut in the chamber, or in the chute, I mean. And I didn't double check this to make sure it's dry, but it should be dry. All right, let's go check these bales. This temperature is great, but we need great bales too. I always come in here first to check. So this looks just a little bit loose, but I think it's just because it's popping back and forth. Oh, it actually just tied a knot. Look at that. That's perfect. There's just a tiny bit of break on there, which is the same as this one. Oh, this one's holding up just a hair bit. This one's still lagging behind just a tiny bit.
Not all of them.
No. You better check the weight on this too. This feels tight. See, now this is the left side. It looks like it's torn just a little bit.
From last night were only like 40 pounds.
Yeah, but again, it's the second cutting. If you bale it tight, it will mold. 100% of the time. Probably 60. That was a little bit heavier. So, do you want the good news first or the bad news first? Let's do the negative first and then end with a positive note. So the bad news is that even though this hay was completely dry several days ago, it is now very damp, and even flipping it, there's just so much humidity in the air that it's not drying. So it's producing really heavy, damp bales. Like I said, if this is too damp, it will mold. So 14% is pretty much my cutoff. Anything over than that runs the risk that it's going to be moldy in a couple of months. If you're going to use it in a month or less, it'd probably be fine. But this is for my customers for their winter storage, so it's not a good idea. So Eric's running to the house to get the moisture tester, moisture probe, to see what the moisture is at. The good news is the baler so far seems to be working out okay. To reduce the bale weight, I've been going a little bit faster. So it's Russian roulette, because if I go too fast and put too much hay through, you could have the same issue with the knotter again. So, but if the bale's too heavy, then you have the issue with the knotter. And the hay's to the point where some areas are looking like it could potentially start to mold or rot just because it's been out too long. Even though I've been flipping it, it's still just, you don't get everything all the time. And those bits that don't necessarily get flipped or caught, they stay in contact with the ground and then they start to go bad. So while I can sit here and look at these rows and say, yeah, that's probably a good $750 hay, the stuff that I just did, which looks great, but just popped out of my baler, looks like crap. And that looks more like $6 hay. And if we're running through $6 hay, I mean, we'll probably be breaking even, and it's not worth doing at that point. It's not worth the time and the stress and the headaches and the putting your entire summer on hold. It's not. So we already know that we're going to be dialing back when we plant Christmas trees, but maybe we'll just have to dial back sooner. My one hay client that normally gets hay every year from me, she's dialed back on the number of horses she has, which means she needs less hay. So that's less I have to produce. So I'm gonna go a little bit faster and see if I can spit some more bales out so we can test it and see where the moisture is at, and catch up with you in a little bit. All right, well, it's still bad and Eric's mad. So the hay is mostly dry, but it's not quite to the point of being sellable. If I was gonna keep this myself, I might be okay with it, but it's not clean enough. It's still slightly wet. I'm shooting for 14 to 16% averaging, and right now some of it is averaging that, but a lot of it's not. The top is dry, but the underneath is still wet as in damp, and it's enough to just throw off the moisture. And the rows are nice and thick, which is great, but not so great when you're trying to dry it. And the problem is, the more you rake it, the more chunky it gets. Originally, they were saying no rain until tomorrow night. Now they're saying rain tomorrow morning. So it's been so humid, we didn't get any sunshine and wind until 4 o'clock, which has dried the top, but it won't dry the bottom because the grass is too long. It's not standing it up. The grass is just super long. Both because it's been growing quickly and because I cut it too long because the grass was still wet when I cut it. Eric's probably getting upset because I'm driving all over, but I can't pull this off if the ground's not level. And I really kind of wish I had a PTO link on this thing, but I might just have to suck it up later on and just cut the PTO down, PTO shaft, so that I can fit a PTO link on this. And it's just it's a double catch PTO, and if you get one of them off, neither of them will work. Usually this one's not too bad. It's always a pain, but not super bad. But let's try it. pretty decent that time, thankfully. But it's still a pain in the butt having to do this 100 times a day. All right, time to hook up to the hay rake. So anything that we don't get baled tonight, it's gonna be a complete loss. And this was some of our best quality hay. It's just, it's frustrating. There's not very much reward in it. Especially when you have lower price hay, there's no reward in it at all. I mean, $4 a bale, you're pretty much breaking even. And that's why a lot of hay farmers are getting out of it, because they're just breaking even. Nobody wants to break even when they're doing this type of hard work. And Eric doesn't like hay stress, so then his stress stresses me out. I mean, I can usually handle this okay, but when he gets stressed out and upset, then it's just 10 times harder. Okay, so the knotter's knotting as best as I can. You know, like I said, you know, most people who do a lot of hay, you know, they consider a knotter to be knotting if you can put 500 plus bales through it without an issue. Obviously, we're not going to be doing that today. We'll be lucky if we can do 200. Actually, less than that, probably 150, because I think we can only fit 200 on the trailer. So we are out of time. Eric's grappling them a little bit different. He's not going to do his normal grab them loose, set them down, come back later and grab them tight. He's just going to stack them loose like many of you guys already do. So he has a lot of issues trying to grab them afterwards because it's just harder. So hopefully it'll go okay. I also reduced most of the tension off everything. So they're going to be baled a lot lighter, and I have to do that. I mean, these were 80-pound bales to start with, so I think I've got them down to 40, 50, between 40 and 50. As much as my customers would probably love a nice 60-pound bale, they would much rather have a bale that's not moldy, and I want happy customers. So yeah. The bale length is just a little bit irregular, so it wouldn't surprise me if Eric's cursing right now. I did warn him, I'm like, I don't know, some of these are coming out a little bit longer. And I forget what can cause that, but I've got so many things that I've been checking and double checking and triple checking that I can't keep track of it all. So anything that doesn't get baled tonight is going to be a loss, and we're going to have to figure out what to do with it. Because the grass is long. And Eric's got a full load. Hopefully he doesn't drop it. And I'm only saying that because it is a little bit looser. Like I said, he likes it nice and tight. But if I do it tight, then it's gonna mold. So we want this to breathe a little bit, or a lot of it. We want it to breathe a lot of it. The moisture is averaging about 12 to 14% now, and that's just from baling it a little bit looser. So we're racing the clock right now to get this off the field before the field starts to get wet again. And it's just a ticking time bomb. You know, you don't want to make a stupid mistake and, you know, jack your baler up again. I know you guys say I should be able to put a ton of hay through this, but as many issues as I have, I don't like to push it unless she's really solid and not having issues. And right now we're against the clock, so I can't push her too hard. Alright, I don't have much battery left. The time is 7:25. It's actually a little bit earlier than I thought. I thought it was 8 o'clock. You can see the sun is already starting to set. It's getting late. Eric has been running bales back and forth with the grapple, which sucks. It's gonna be hard on his back. It's not fun at all. So we have these bales out here. I did this half of the field. I didn't do the 2 laps around. I'm mean, I guess it could have, but I was just running the rake patterns. I probably could have just cleaned those off, but I figure the last 2 rows, if we have to shove them off the field, we can. And then we just have this over here. So maybe about 100 bales. So Eric's collecting them with a grapple, running them back and just dumping them in the barn. So he wants me to start hand stacking them. So we have probably 150 to 200 bales still on the field. This trailer holds, I mean, each stack is 50, 100. So it's got 200. He's doing 230, I think is what he said. So this is what happens when you stack with the dividers. See all that space is between the bales? It just makes for a really loose stack. The bottom, I scooched them all in together, so it's not gonna be fun to unload. I spy with my little eye, little white turkeys hiding in the high. That wasn't very good. All right, yes, the turkeys are over there. I'm glad they came back. I have the tutter on the back. It's about like putting a thong on a fat girl, but you get a little bit of coverage. This one might actually be closer to 200. I think I got 120 from the first cutting. And the first cutting wasn't as thick as this. This is definitely thicker. All right, so it doesn't look dry to you, but I can already tell that this is already dry, except for the under parts. This is wet. So this is where it gets a little dicey. If I were to go through and I were to rake this, it's gonna combine 2.5 of these rows into a massive pile, which then isn't gonna dry too well. So right here, this is the stuff that the tractor man, actually this is the stuff that, oh my gosh, that didn't even get caught. See, the problem with it being so, shoot, look at this, so thick, is that you run part of it over and then you can't tell if it's cut or it's just laying down. So there might actually be several areas like this. I mean, this was the first pass and it's the hardest to line up, but yeah. Let's look at this. Yeah, this is, honestly, even underneath that's dry. Look at this. This looks bright green. This is mostly dry. That's crazy, absolutely crazy. I was not expecting this. We did have some dew last night, but nothing like outrageous. So, again, we want to get it off the field as soon as it's dry. See right here, this is just a little bit wet still. And that's a little bit wet. So, on one hand, if I tie the hay and it dries too fast, it's gonna bleach out really fast, which is gonna make it look a lot uglier. Now, while it's true that I do have pretty much all of this pre-sold, I still want it to be really nice, presentable for my customer. So again, being just a little bit OCD. But if I don't tet it and it doesn't dry underneath and just the top dries, then I'm gonna have the top sun bleached and the bottom still wet. So maybe just a real light tetting is in order, just enough to kind of fluff it around and fluff it back up so it can get that air moving through it. Because right now this wind is what's gonna dry it. It's not too hot, it's probably 78, maybe 80. It's gonna keep warming up. So tomorrow, this will be baleable. That's crazy to me. Good so far, good so far. All right, we are out here on our back field and we're gonna rake this. I have not checked the moisture, but I have no qualms with it. I'm sure it is completely beyond dry right now, as hot as it's been. You can see it's doing like 2.5 right now. Oops. I'm turning the wrong direction here. Well, that's a pretty decent windrow. So you guys were asking about the kicker wheel. As far as the kicker wheel goes, I will show you more on a thicker field. This one doesn't really need the kicker wheel because it's so thin. We're not doing everything today. We'll do the big chunks today, and then I know it doesn't make any sense, and then the little tiny chunk we'll do tomorrow. This field I definitely have to get off because it's going to be over dry, and then when it's over dry, it's dusty, and it's just not much fun to deal with. It'll be like, if it's too dry, it'll be under 10% moisture. I like 10 to 14%. 12 is ideal, I feel. That is a windrow. But it's still, the way the hay is, it really needs to be in tighter just a little bit, because you can still see that strip down the center. But that should be pretty good for the baler as long as I line it up correctly. Sometimes if I'm off just a little bit, then I didn't miss it. But it looks like a nice windrow. Alright, so here we are. Honestly, the windows are not as big as I was expecting, but they are extremely even, and I think that was just from tedding. Tedding it just allowed everything to settle out and be regrouped back in. Obviously, this I had to run over a million times, but other than that, I mean, it looks really good. And then this up here. Oh, well, that's all right. All right, I'm gonna get baling. Alright, so we got this field baled. I did have some issues with the right knot string getting hung up on the knotter. And you can see it's still just a little bit getting hung up there. See how this one's further back than this one? Timing wise, they look about the same. Actually, these two look about right. And honestly, this one actually looks slightly ahead of the other one. So what I finally did, we played around with this. This sets the tension on the twine holder, and then we have the twine disc holder right here. So finally I went through and I tightened this down 2 quarter turns. So tighten it down here, tighten it down here, and that seemed to do it. And ever since I did that, I haven't missed any bales. So it looks like we're at 191 for the number of bales. So we got just under 200 bales off this field, which is really good for this field. This field is always struggled from day one. It's really been needing to be replanted. See, it just turned again. And granted, that one's probably a little bit lighter than it should be, but it's just hard on this field to get everything consistent because the grass isn't consistent.
Oh, shivering.
That's why seeing stuck in the hay was bad. Alright, so this is what the barn looks like full of hay right now. This is goat barn hay. And then this is the horse hay that's sitting there. And then this is the load of horse hay right here on the trailer that's sitting there. Hopefully we can pull it off okay. You can see it's kind of leaning. So Eric's gonna use the grapple and see if we can get it off that way, because it'll be so much faster, so much easier, and hopefully it'll work out okay. Well, it looks like we lost most of the top stack because we do have a leaking skylight, and I did have a tarp over it, which I don't know if it either condensated underneath it or it leaked through it. Either way, it ruins the whole top stack. So this is why we don't like to leave hay in spots that it's not meant to be left. But you know, just trying to be accommodating, but ended up kind of losing money on it. next stack. I think there's 160 in the back plus another 20, so 180 right here.
Wow, what do you think, guys? That was definitely a flurry of getting hay done. I felt like it was a never-ending rotation of making hay, making hay, making hay, making hay. And even though we did lose a certain amount of our hay, we did really good. We made all of our customers happy. And I feel pretty good about where we ended the season at. Of course, we are still going to need to make some repairs on the baler because it's not quite in shape for next year. And the other thing is, I really need to get some fresh seed down into the ground so that next year we'll have a nice, thick, lush crop. It's been a while since I've done it, so stay tuned for the next videos coming up as we go through the rest of what happened this summer. Thanks so much, guys. I hope you've been well. Feel free to give this video a like and hit the subscribe button if you are new to the channel. I appreciate it, guys. Have a great time. Love you. Bye.